Well met, knights. These are the hallowed halls of the Order of Muscle and Magicka, and you, my friend, just accepted a quest. So there you are, strolling out of a heroic with your boys. You finally got past Osrook for the first time ever, and consequently you're going to require years of therapy for it.
Break yourself, break yourself, break yourselves upon my body. Feel my body.
Anyway, one of your friends, none of whom lift by the way, invariably asks the question that you know somebody's gonna ask. Where are we gonna eat? You politely suggest Thunder Bluff because you're pretty sure you can get a low-calorie salad there, but you already know that all your friends are gonna want to eat at the exact same place they always want to eat after Heroic, and that is Cheesecake Factory in Orgrimmar, and you have already consumed most, if not all, of your daily calories in food buffs before the dungeon. What the hell are you gonna do? Fear not, knights, I'm about to provide you with some quick quest objectives as well as a not-so-quick sort of overarching life lesson. First of all, if you're somebody who finds yourself eating out quite often, maybe you're just an extremely social person, or maybe you have responsibilities, maybe you're a businessman and you gotta rub elbows with the bigwigs, I highly recommend you look into intermittent fasting, which is a template that is very well suited towards being sociable in the evenings. Basically, you make use of various hunger management tools in order to push your first meal farther and farther back in the day, which then allows you to have much larger meals in the evening. And I'd be happy to do a much more extensive video on intermittent fasting in the future, so let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in, but suffice it to say this. I have it on good authority that Thrall practices intermittent fasting, which makes a lot of sense to me because it's the only way I can figure that he manages to maintain such a slim waist while also maintaining the various social obligations and responsibilities that come along with being the true war chief of the Horde and savior of his people. Another really good strategy is to simply construct a proxy pylon just outside the foot of your enemy's base. And basically wrong strat. Fill up on protein and fibrous vegetables throughout the day leading up to your dinner out. This helps you not only to get your protein and vegetable requirements out of the way early, but it also lets you fill up on less calories, which will then hold you over and allow you more calories come dinner time. Now this next one might seem slightly counterintuitive, but bear with me. I think that one of the best ways to minimize the potentially harmful effects that eating out can have on your physique is to eat out more often. Particularly when you're in your off-season, when you're bulking, when you're on vacation, anytime that you can afford the calories, and the reasons are twofold. First of all, it allows you some research. I mean, if you spend your off-season going to each and every single popular place that you know your friends are always going to want to go to eat, and you find yourself one staple, one solid macro-friendly food that you know you can always afford that's not going to break the macro bank, then when it comes time to enter back into that dieting phase, you're going to be all set. On top of that, it just gives you more experience being in a restaurant environment, having to look at serving sizes and having to estimate and approximate. I mean, you're not always going to be able to just pull the nutrition facts up beforehand on the website, and even when you can, they're going to be wrong half the time anyway, so eating out more often forces you to become accustomed to estimating, to looking at a plate and not already knowing because you have it on MyFitnessPal exactly what's in there, and actually having to think critically and compare it to foods that you've eaten in the past at other restaurants, foods that you cook at home, to start to be able to look at foods and already know what the basic macronutrient content of that food is. Now this is something that can be very dangerous if you do it too often while you're dieting and you're inexperienced, but see, that's why we do it in the off-season. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and this is what leads to you down the line being able to do this stuff just off the top of your head and not having to rely on tracking your calories through MyFitnessPal for the rest of your life. What the hell? How come they don't have any entries for my favorite ice cream? Now the way I see it, there are sort of two extreme camps when it comes to eating out and being social as somebody who is physique oriented. The first one is to proceed to go ahead and track your macros in the restaurant. The problem with this is calories and macros suck at restaurants. I mean, it's entirely possible to walk into a restaurant and order just one meal that is already twice your maintenance, especially when it comes to fat content. I mean, I know for a fact I've gone into a restaurant and ordered specifically the lowest fat content item on the menu, and it was still 3/4 of my daily fat allotment. The other extreme is just to completely say screw it and to go full YOLO mode and to not track a single thing, which I think can be appropriate in some situations depending on your goals and depending on the season that you're in. But you see, if you just say YOLO all the time, sooner or later you're going to come into a situation where you are now trying to out-train a bad diet. And you cannot out-train a bad diet. Unless you're a Goron, maybe. They eat rocks. So, what I humbly submit that you do in such situations is to take the middle ground between the two camps and do the following. Disregard macros, acquire calories. And you will acquire calories at the Cheesecake Factory, especially the one in Orgrimmar. In other words, I think that the best way to go about tracking your macros when you're eating out is to ditch tracking your macros when you're eating out, and to focus instead on overall calories and to a lesser extent protein. What this allows you to do basically is to maintain the flexibility and the sanity that you probably want if you're going to be eating out at a restaurant with your friends, while still maintaining enough control that you don't sabotage the work that you put in the gym. Now remember, you can still employ any of the aforementioned strategies that we talked about before, like like filling up on protein and fibrous vegetables throughout the day. And in fact, you still want to hit protein minimums. You know, you still have micronutrient requirements. When it comes to carbs, you still got to eat enough carbs to get in your fiber. When it comes to fats, you still have to consume enough fat to get your essential fatty acids. It's just that outside of those minimums and the protein, you're allowing the rest of your calories, your carbs and your fat, to just sort of fall where they may. And I think this is a really good strategy, not just for eating out, but for dieting in general for a lot of people. Especially for the kind of person who is overwhelmed by the idea of tracking all of their macros to a T and probably wouldn't stick to it anyway. It's important to remember that macros are really just the cherry on top. Well, I don't like cherries. They're the icing on the cake. And while we tend to get very wrapped up in macros here on the online fitness community, they're one of those things that can be beneficial, but for most people, for anyone who's not competing, for anyone who's not a competitive athlete, they are not at all necessary. And furthermore, we're talking minor percentage points, comparing tracking your macros out to a T and having your carbs and fats precise versus just making sure that you get your overall calorie requirements and hit protein sufficiency. It's also worth noting that a lot of people fixate and obsess over what macronutrient breakdown is perfect and optimal for them, and how does their body perform best? Should they have higher carbs and lower fat, or would they do better with higher fat and lower carbs? When perhaps the best way to figure out what your body prefers is to simply eat what you eat and observe where the macros fall given your natural go-to diet. Ultimately, like so many other things in this field, it's going to come down to sustainability, adherence, and personal preference. Now, if you're like me, okay, if you like numbers, if you like running your DPS meter on its fullest settings, if you like having control of every single little piece of data, basically if you're a min-maxer, then tracking macros isn't going to be an issue for you. In fact, you will probably enjoy it. But for everyone else, I don't care how optimal one macronutrient breakdown may be compared to another. If gaining that 1 to 2% advantage by fitting yourself in these very narrow, very rigid fat and carb ratios is going to cause you enough stress that it causes you to go off of your diet and lose 20%, well, I may not be super great at math, but I'm pretty sure we're not making gains anymore at that point. I'm pretty sure we're making losses. Anyway, I hope you gained some experience points from this. Don't forget to like the video if you did level up. It helps us to increase our faction reputation and to recruit more knights for the order. If you have any questions on this topic or any particular topic that you would like to see covered in a future quest, then let me know in the comments section below. And of course, subscribe to the channel and join the Order of Muscle and Magicka, where I hope to arm you with various weapons and spells against bro magic and to help you find your individual experience bar. Until next time, stay vigilant. What the hell? How come they don't have an entry for my favorite ice cream? Oh, damn it! I accidentally bought the low-fat version. Son of a... Wait a minute. Why is the seal broken? Liquid!